It can be very clean, so you can't mark down on executions, you know, if it's clean. But they're not using it to, they've done it, and that's how you would teach it. Like, you know, you teach your freshman team, here's what you're going to do, but stop. So literally now that's what we're doing all the way at the highest level of cheerleading in Michigan, is saying, that's what we're going to do, but stop. We're going to rewind and stop. Because I want to make sure that you can grab her shin, grab her foot, hug her legs, just to make sure it's nice and tight, close together, but we're not using it for what it's used for. So that's sort of the...
And get 4 points.
Yeah, I don't want to poo-poo it because it's not professional either to say don't keep your feet together. That's not the point. But the point is you have to be a little bit more awake as to what is correct. And feet underneath hips is correct, and going immediately to stunts is correct. That's what you're supposed to try to do. Be in the know about, this is a different topic, so I'm just leaving this very hot topic and supposed to stop with that. Okay, be in the know about when it is or isn't appropriate for bases or flyers to have slight movement. These days, keeping up with what's going on, there are some release and catch things where there is movement and there's supposed to be movement. Not balance checks, not a lot of movement, not saving the stunt, but the natural movement of anything that tosses and catches, bases are going to bend their legs to catch it. If they already have the flyer's foot, there should be no movement. You can't say, well, it was a one-legged stunt, so of course there's going to be a little movement. Oh no, if you know, whether they have the facing each other style or one going right underneath, there's a couple different styles of how the bases would do it. But no matter what, I always say to my kids, wax museum, it's like a wax museum. You go up there like, just like no movement, could barely even yell. And no movement up there. There should be no movement if you already had the foot in an extension, an elevator, a liberty, a heel stretch, and yes, even a scale or something more difficult. There should just be no movement except that flyer. It's like frozen. But when you go to catch a foot, and there's a bunch of things, really. I'm going to just name a bunch of them to you so you can picture it. So let's just do, let's say full up because that's popular, and then we'll get that out of the way and then we'll move on to some other things. But when you full up, the bases bend their knees, but they keep their arms straight, and then they rise it up and they've got it. And it's very slight. I exaggerated a little bit. So once they get it pretty good, it's slight, and then they go up. And the flyer doesn't move, but she goes sink and up, just slightly. And when you see it, you go, oh, that wasn't wax museum. That's like what, but that is the nature of that stunt. You toss a girl up, grab her right thigh, and you heave her on up there, and you catch, and then you go back up. They should have straight arms, but they bend their legs and catch it, go underneath it, and toss back up. Sometimes the momentum of anything that, well, I'm going to say in particular, maybe a full up, the girl comes around and does a little boing, boing, boing. You know, it's very slight, but you know, she goes all the way around and boing, and there's like a little bit of a movement there. You have to kind of figure out when is it like more of a vertical and when is it a balance check. And because when it's going from side to side, you know, and like you catch maybe a tick up where you have to switch feet, you throw one foot and you catch the other foot, and then you catch it and you go up. If the base is kind of walked a little bit because she's leaning that way, that's a balance check. But when it's going down and up a little bit, or a spin is going boing, that's kind of appropriate and correct movement for the stunts that are going on today. And that's where you guys have to kind of keep up with what's going on because we no longer can expect no movement. Here's some other little things you might see other teams do though. So if they do the ones where they're standing on the pony and they pop them up to something, again, they might pop them up and bend a little bit as they catch. Even in an elevator, they might pop them from there and pop them on up and kind of bend so that there's not a jolt going on. They're trying to like soften that. Or they're jumping in back and the bases are back to back and then they're catching something, or you vault over a post. There's just certain things where when you catch the foot, there's movement. If you go up and go around in a 360 and they catch your feet and your feet are a little bit apart because you can't keep together right here, and then you go up like right away. No movement this way and that way, but you don't see that frozen QP, but you don't see that. There's movement going on in a lot of the things that are going on today. Karen.
I think the movement that I look for is whether the base is dancing around on the side.
I agree.
I think that
the feet moving.
Yeah, and if the feet together with the flyer, it's not that they're together, but if you've got one sponger that is dropping hands,
right.
Or they're giving it this or whatnot, and the other one is fighting it too, that's the movement that I look for. I don't look for the movement of the stunt, the progression of the stunt,
Right.
that's sort of.
So let's talk about, because actually that's a good point. I don't know if this is exactly what
So
you're talking about.
maybe that's where that we're getting the feet together. It's the feet are not, I mean, it's the
It's
feet
sort of a
are not
different topic.
together.
Right.
The feet are not going down together.
Go, Carol, stand up. It's done here.
We've got bases that are running around
Right.
like this, and then we've got them coming over here,
Right.
and they're leaning and trying to get it back in. There's a movement. Well, those little flyers up there are trying to keep their feet together. And then when they come down in that sponge, I know they should be under their feet, but if they are really wide,
They can't be beyond their
they
base.
can't get up. I mean, there's no way. Even if she's pushing as hard as she can, those two on the bottom are not gonna be able to do it
And I
all
can
the
tell
way
you, not
back.
that you need to know whose fault it is, but most of the time the flyer's pushing out.
Yes.
The base is like, come
Yes.
on, help me
Yes.
out here, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
But I have
but
to
I
say,
think the
totally
together
different
meant,
topic of the
you know,
movement up here. I'm talking about the movement up
okay,
here.
but even when they get it from here, we go down here.
Right.
It's not,
Right. Yeah, we already talked about this? Yes, we did? Okay, so we know, do we get the sponge thing? You have to, okay. So, but the movement, you made a good point about
but
legs.
that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Maybe that's what we're
No,
saying.
I think we
don't
already
want
talked
them to-
about.
No, but I'm saying, when they're telling us that we're saying keeping the feet together.
Right. I'm gonna talk about feet moving, because that's a really good way to catch whether, okay, so bases have to fit that body in here. And so they do a little bit of a step, and they do a small step. They step in when the sun is up, they step out when the body's got to come between them. And that's about it. That's the only walking they do. But I agree, when you go to catch something, and there's, quite a bit of walking around, there is going to be walking around to come underneath the sun. And that's it. And then it stops. But when you're seeing that, it'll be a lot less if you don't have to catch a foot. Because then all you have to do is step about, maybe 4 inches forward. You don't really have to step very far. But when you go to catch it, you'll kind of like bend, and then you'll step up. So your legs are kind of apart, and then you step up. Does that make sense?
But you'll even see the bases, their torso will twist, and you can see almost the front of them, whereas you're really not supposed to see anything technically, but their shoulders.
So there's one style of cinching where one of the bases faces the front and one faces sideways, sort of in a T, and then there's one where they both face that way. So make sure if they do that, that all of them, that's their style they go on. Do you know what she's talking about? Yes. But yeah, I
I
agree.
thought maybe that's that we were misconstruing what we said as the feet together.
No, I think really, where a lot of this came from is that a few years ago, some teams started doing pull-ups and things like that in competition, and they didn't score very high, and the very plain stuff did. And so now everyone's sort of confused in the cheer world, in the coaching world. What do we do? We do the simple. And so I just thought, I'm taking this opportunity to say that simple is not necessarily advanced, and you just have to be able, you need to know that. You just need to know that. Simple and clean is not advanced, even though that might be what they chose to do.
Sometimes though, when you've got huge, say, your 16-year-olds out there on the floor, and then the next team has got, 8 on the floor. The 16, you've got the more possibilities of the execution.
Right.
And sometimes the smaller groups seems a lot cleaner, even though it might not be as advanced. So it's hard to judge that.
I agree. I think that's why they have the differences in the 22 and
Yeah.
21. Okay, I know I'm supposed to get out of here, so I know the difference between a balance check and an execution error. Hang on. Sorry. Oh, yeah, I guess I am at the end. Okay. So, wait, so when you all say, that's what the score sheet says, my hands are tied, you've said it before, you've heard it before. That statement or belief represents an official who's not staying educated in the ever-changing skills. If you say, I can't do anything about it, that's wrong. Because you can, because you're the judge. So, here comes the judge. You are the judge. Be responsible enough and knowledgeable enough to translate what you saw or what you didn't see in style and correct execution into a general impression score that reflects the different degrees of basic versus where our stunt is. So your thing is you got up with the sport in stunting, and it's totally not in the manual. Whereas the other stuff is kind of in the manual, it is totally not in the manual. And I would appreciate if you really are just, perplexed and really want to know, wait a minute, that's not right. I'd rather have you say that to my face so I can translate how the judges feel to the coaches when the coaches are whining about it to me. Because if you do that more behind my back, well, you can't say it. And I'm thinking, okay, we don't need a war going on here. I just need to know what I can go back and say, yes, they were open-minded, and this is a really hot topic out there in case you didn't know. The hot topic is to do difficult or not to do difficult. Lots of teams stand around the scores table, the tally table, and the coaches say, I got to take that out. The judges don't really know it's difficult anyway, and I don't want them laughing at you, and you don't want them laughing at you. They're like, oh, the judges don't really know, so let's just take that out. No, I'm going to be able to say to them, they know. They know. They're just a little frustrated with that score sheet, but that's where maybe we got to explore that today. I don't really know, but that's not for me to say. I just want to talk about style. So, yeah, you don't mark down people who have their feet together, but you should know a little bit about why people put their feet where they do. That's one topic. And the other topic is obviously the speed. It's not in most circles correct to just stay and say a few words and say a few words more and then say a few words more and then go to the stunt when you only have this amount of time to stunt like a maniac. But I do think we also should focus on the arms and the tumbling and the stunting and the other things we said today too. Try and keep abreast and maybe share with each other when you're at competitions. You see something new and you say, what do you think? Is that correct? And surely there's enough knowledge between the three of you and the two safety people to figure out, no, really, they just created that. They invented that, and that's very creative, and there's nothing wrong with that execution, because that happens all the time, I think. Right? Okay, folks? I need a little applause for using technology.